Thanks, everybody. Yeah, Scott, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about their process in Texas and hear from Robert and his full team.
Hey, Robert, Eddie, and I think Will's joining us in a minute. Now, Virginia has set the bravado bar here, and I'm going to be very disappointed if Texas can't exceed the Commonwealth.
Well, I don't know that we'll meet the bravado. I don't know the amazing projects that have all gone on. There's some really fun stuff. Ours is a little different, and we hope that it's something that some other states can look at and maybe take something from that other folks can use. So yeah, we're glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Great. Robert, I'd love if we could break this conversation between the thing, the kind of energy conservation work that you've been doing, but also the structure in which you made it happen, that I think there are learnings in that for other states as well. So maybe you could summarize both and we'll dive into some Q&A.
Okay. Yeah, first off, Eddie Trevino is the director of our State Energy Conservation Office. I'm Robert Wood, Associate Deputy Controller, and I oversee part of our agency, including SECO. Will Coonahan is on the call, and Will is one of our managers who's involved in the program as well. So real quickly, I think the thing that we hope makes this useful to people is every state receives on an annual basis state energy conservation or energy conservation funds from the Department of Energy. And so, and typically for the state of Texas, that's roughly $2.5 million. I think and Eddie, you can confirm this in a minute, but that's, either the largest or maybe second or third largest. But so most states get something less than $2.5 million. And at $2.5 million, while that's significant, it's not going to make or break a lot of programs. What Texas has been able to do over a long period is put aside some money. We first put aside back in the 70s some energy money from an Exxon settlement that Exxon had with all of the states. Most states spent that money. Texas spent some of it, but put some of it aside in a loan fund. Then in 2009 and 10, with the stimulus funds, the ARA funds that came out during the Obama administration, very similarly, we took some of that money, and rather than just grant it out, which many states did, we actually made it a loan fund and added that back to our loan fund. So the result of that is, in addition to the roughly 2 to 2.5 million that we have a year in annual appropriations from the Department of Energy, we have a $230 million loan fund that spends off interest, both whether it's in the bank or whether it's lent out, spends off interest that we use for a lot of programs. So the result of all of that is, rather than having a small grant program, which is what I think a lot of states end up using this money for, and do worthwhile things, but we've been able to create something that is sustainable over time. And every year we kind of watch to see what Congress will do with the budget. And I think like everybody, we want to continue to get that amount of money. But the reality is, if we didn't get an appropriation of that size through DOE for a year or two or three, we would continue on. And we've been able to do some great, interesting and fun programs. And I'll let Eddie expand more on that. But that's, Scott, I think that was the reason we thought this was a program that was worth bringing to NASCA's attention, is that hopefully there's some states out there that can see a little bit of what we've done, and particularly in light of currently as Congress debates whether or not there should be more COVID stimulus. If there is stimulus money that comes to the state, the model that we've used in the past is probably what we would do again. And I think that may create an opportunity for other states to create some sort of a sustainable program.
Yeah, I mean, the modeling of itself is fascinating. This whole idea of creating a loan fund, it's almost like microfinance works in developing countries where it's paid back and you're recycling the funds rather than issuing a direct grant. Eddie, let's bring to life some of the initiatives that this model is being applied to. So give us some illustrations of what's being invested in the state through this model.
Well, through the loan program, we work with public entities, solely with public entities, and that would include state agencies, local governments, public schools, county governments, and state-funded hospitals. Right now, we've got a loan out to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. So they're actually doing retrofits in the prisons, which is a good thing. And they're doing retrofits of lighting and also of water. One of the problems that prisons have, ironically, is they use a lot of water. And the reason they use a lot of water is because prisoners are bored. And so when prisoners are bored, what do? They flush the toilet. And so what we've actually done is we're working with the prison to change all of those fixtures out. And it's actually going to be a significant enough reduction that the cost of all of the retrofits will pay for itself in 8 years. And so we're working with the prison on that project. We're also working with school districts and taking advantage of aging equipment. They want to replace aging equipment because what they want to do is, while kids are learning from home, take advantage of the time to make improvements to their facilities so that when the kids come back, they'll have a better learning environment, not only for the kids, but for the teachers as well. So we're working with school districts on doing HVAC replacements and repairs, lighting upgrades. And even though there's limited access to the facilities, again, they have access to the facilities during school hours, where before they'd have to wait for the holidays. We've got another program. Did you want to ask me a question?
I've got lots of questions, but you keep going for a second.
Okay. Well, we've got another program that's a local government technical assistance program, and where we provide energy assistance services at no cost to the school districts, to local governments, to county governments. And we do preliminary energy assessments. We have technical assistance if they have a specific need and they don't have the personnel able to provide those services. We'll provide the services in their behalf. And so we use that introduction to introduce other services available at SECO as well.
So I want to make sure we understand this. So this is essentially almost like when a state issues bonds for a big road financing project or something like that. But in this case, it's a state agency that's making capital available, but you're also providing expertise around how to do it. Is that, do we understand?
Yes, that's correct. The
So
capital is available for low interest rate loans. We're at 2% right now, which is about as low as you can get. And then the services, additional services we offer are free to the entities as well.
So let's just get into the mechanics. So I love this part of NASCA. This is what we call Wonk Fest, where we go sort of deep into the granular stuff. So if I'm running a school district in a remote part of Texas, what do I do? So there's something that I think has some efficiency savings, but we don't have the local budget to provide for that. How do I find this? How do I apply for it? How's it assessed and chosen?
Well, one thing is really simple. It's a one-page form that the school district sends to us. And they basically say, we feel there are energy efficiency opportunities at our school. Can you help us? And so what we will do is we'll send a group, a professional engineer, a company that we contract with, over to the site to assess their site. What we ask them to do is pick their worst performing buildings, and we try to identify what the problems are. And then when we identify the problems, we bring solutions to help them solve those problems. Some of those problems can be solved with their own maintenance staff, and we make sure that they know that, so they're not expending any additional resources. Other problems can be solved through a revolving loan program. And so we share information to them about our loan program at that time as well.
I'm curious too, Scott, if I can pop in here really quickly and maybe Will can address this, but is there a limited amount of resources? If so, how much? And then how then is this competitive? Is it a highly competitive process, or folks just now learning about this? Tell us a little bit more about the process.
Well, on the loan program, it's first come, first serve. So if you get in line first, no matter what the size of the project is, although our largest loan size is 8 million, then you're going to get service first. For technical services program, it's also first come, first serve. And this will make Robert very happy. We actually had a little over 3.5 million last year from the Department of Energy. And so those are the funds that we use to help serve our public customers. Sorry, Will.
And Pam, to that point, when the program, as I said, started in the 70s and started at about $90 million, grew to about $130 million loan fund over those decades. And then we added another, I think, 90 million to it out of the stimulus funds. And it has taken a few years, as you would expect. You know, it was pretty well booked up at 130 million. And then it's taken a little while to absorb that. So it is a matter where we have to, we continue to advertise the program, but we've never been so tight on money that it's been just, something that people just, discounted because there was never any funds available. Typically there are funds available. And one thing I think also, Eddie said a while ago, in the case of the example he gave with the school district where we pick out a school building and try to identify the issues. I think it's important. We have engineers both on staff, including Eddie, but engineers on staff as well as on contract who do that. That's not a matter of, me and Will walking around going, well, hey, you ever thought about changing out those light bulbs? It's a professional diagnosis. And so I think that's part of what also makes the program, I think, very successful.
So there's a question coming on chat. I'm not sure whether this should go to Will, Eddie, or Robert, or any of you. It's from David Wortman, and it's like, so are the agencies, how do they pay the loan back? Does it come directly from cost savings, or do you just presume that they're taking the cost savings and it's like paying back a bank?
Go ahead, Eddie.
We function like a bank. They have to pay the loan back no matter what. And they pay back on quarterly payments on our state quarter cycle. So every 3 months we get a loan repayment. The payments are based on energy savings. Statute says you have to use energy savings to pay back the loan. That's why we have payback requirements to what qualifies for a loan. Right now, our loans have to pay back within 15 years. And let's say that a retrofit project will pay for itself in 12 years. That will be the loan term. And so that determines the term of the loan and what can qualify as an approved measure in the loan.
So I think you're nailing the question there, which is, so the loan term is set by the benefits that are likely to accrue from it, but it's got to be tied to energy savings. That's mandated. Yeah,
that's correct.
It's tied to energy savings, but I think it's also important. Some agencies, of course, agencies in Texas and many places are funded either annually or in Texas for 2 years. And that sometimes does cause some consternation. Sometimes, they'll have their agency lawyers have to get involved and sort of do some analysis on whether or not they believe that agency can obligate itself beyond that 2-year period. I think by and large, we've got over that, but that for sure, that's a question I think that states, if states move to this, that's a question that has to be addressed is can states obligate themselves for a 15-year period when they have a 2-year budget cycle?
Right. So go ahead, Pam, I'm sorry.
No, I was just curious. I was going to ask Robert, does this process or the loan program have legislative oversight, or is this within your own agency? Always a touchy question, but I'm just curious.
Well, no, it's a great question. And it's a great question that we talked a good bit about when Scott interviewed us for the video. What's really interesting is we have legislative authority to operate the program. But the legislative authority is fairly broad. And so we have been very successful over time at working with the legislature. I mean, we try to be very customer friendly, which obviously I think is part of the goal. But we work with the legislature to help direct them. The authority we have is very broad and allows us to do all these things. As everybody on this call realizes, legislators periodically want to micromanage things. They want a specific, pot of money to go to a specific cause. And we're no different. We have that as well. We have legislators who will introduce a bill for a very niche program that they see value in. We've been really successful, knock on wood, really successful at being able to work with our legislators and explain to them the value of having something that is very, very flexible and able to sell the value of it. So it does have legislative oversight, but thus far, again, knock on wood, it's been a fairly light touch, which has allowed us to do some really innovative things. And so, when again, going back to the stimulus funds, and this is something I think, Scott, we talked about during the video, we on a very short notice were able to ramp up and kick off a program to replace equipment in schools with some money we were going to lose if we weren't able to obligate it. And so because we've had that successful relationship with not only the legislature but other agencies, we've had those relationships built thanks to Eddie and his staff, and we've been able to avoid the micromanaging that quite often sort of bollockses up programs like this.
I love that. So I think you went in a legislative session yesterday, right? Today went in. So Will, I'm going to throw this question to you. So if you walk through the streets of Boston and you bumped into a representative and they said, so why are we doing this? So what do I tell my citizens in my district of why we're investing in this? What would you recommend their answer be?
Well, what I would say is the reason that SECO does the work that they do is to help make local governments more energy efficient, more water efficient. And we have really innovative programs to teach, not only teach, but also help repair facilities and facility managers on how to make their plants, their operations more efficient. That's the whole reason that SECO is around.
Mm-hmm. And if I understand it correctly, though, you're also providing an avenue for smaller entities within city government, town government, to almost go direct to the state and not be finding other avenues beyond sort of their direct budgetary processes. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of the smaller entities out there, when we have, like most states, we have facilities, local government facilities that are pretty far away from the major population areas, and they do have a very difficult time getting the funding that they need to do retrofit type of programs to teach their facility operators how to, to have an efficient operation. So absolutely, it is a program that obviously lots of large entities, large local government entities use, but it is especially beneficial for the smaller local government entities that maybe wouldn't have the ability that maybe a more sophisticated or larger city might have.
Yeah, we're back to accessibility again across state. It's really interesting where we started with Colorado. Robert, we have a new administration coming into Washington, D.C. in a few days. Does this mean that you're keeping a watchful eye on what Department of Energy and other federal agencies might be doing and preparing for that? What does that look like?
Absolutely. I mean, I think from a global policy standpoint, we always want to kind of keep up with what's happening in Washington D.C. And I think Eddie does a good job. He's involved in the National Association of State Energy Organizations, much like NASCA, and so we do stay tied into that. And I think that's yes, at a macro level, it's always important. Again, at a micro level, it's sort of where the rubber hits the road. We've built some sustainability that I think we will continue on irrespective of what DOE might do over the short and even the medium term.
Yeah, that's great. I love that concept that you can be consistent regardless of what's happening at a federal level. You can keep the investment flowing. Pam, I'm tempted to ask for a final round of lessons learned and any advice that you give to any other states, but before I do that, do you have any other questions you'd like to ask of these?
I was just going to ask the team if there were any, it kind of builds into this lessons learned, but roadblocks, challenges, things that you all would maybe say were red flags you'd love to share with your colleagues around the country before we do this last final wrap up.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about communication and with legislators, with our sister agencies that we're serving. And so I'd like to tell you that when there are hiccups that we've got good support, and historically I think that bears out. And so I think that ongoing effort to listen to people and to be open and to be innovative and come up with those ideas, I think pays off in this program and others. And I think that's the big thing we look for. Red flags. I think we're always watchful every session, always watchful for those well-meaning but perhaps problematic ideas that would direct us in a way that would cause us to split our resources or whatever. And again, it's not that we don't want that or don't welcome that guidance from the legislature. But what we know is if the legislature ever starts micromanaging slices of this money, then it gets progressively harder and harder. And so we've again thus far been successful at convincing them. So I think that's something we always watch for, is even that nose under the camel's tent that looks like it's a great idea. We're very quick to go to our members and say, happy to do it, but let's don't do the bill. We'll just do it for you. And if it's a good idea, we want to do that. And we've been successful at that.
I think that's great advice. It's interesting. And almost the larger the fund gets, the more interesting it gets for, what was the metaphor you used? The camel under the tent? That you're proactively managing that or engaging with that to make sure you deliver the outcomes. I love that. Eddie, Will, any lessons that you'd want to share with other states that are going down this path?
Well, for us, it's really constant outreach. There's turnover. Every local government, every K-12 school, every public entity has turnover. And you have turnover in key areas. So you establish a relationship with one school district, the person retires or gets promoted or goes someplace else and doesn't let his person who follows up after him know about you. So then you're starting the relationship all over again. So it's a constant outreach process. It's a matter of when you've provided a service for, let's say, a school district or a local government, making sure you follow up afterwards to see if they're doing anything and if the contact person is the same, or if there's any additional services that you can provide to them that they may or may not be aware of.
I guess the one thing I would add is just, and we're very fortunate in this respect, we have an incredibly qualified, seasoned staff in SECO. Under Eddie's leadership, we've done some really great things with training, and we've built some consistency in the staff such that they know their programs, they know the people that they're working with. They are very good about, as Eddie said, reaching out and promoting the programs. So we've been very fortunate, just truthfully on a staff side, not to have a whole lot of turnover. And when we do have turnover, we can quickly get the new person in and up to speed, such that it's like we have no seamless, or it's pretty seamless transition. So
Thank you. And Robert, is it fair to say that if there's another state that's interested in replicating some of this, you would all be open to a phone call?
Absolutely.
That's great. That's great. Well, Pam, I measure myself every night by the dinner table conversation I have with my 3 little girls, and I didn't think it was going to be about flushing toilets in the Department of Corrections within the state of Texas, but it turns out it is. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. This has been really helpful, and we really appreciate the time you invested in us, especially because you're entering session today. Good luck with those conversations, and Pam, back to you over in Lexington.
Great. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Scott, and to the Texas team. Yeah, there was some theme flowing between plumbing in Texas and plumbing in Virginia. So makes for my afternoon and enjoyment as well. But thanks for everybody for being with us today, to our teams in Colorado and Virginia and Texas and Missouri, not only for your time today to really unpack and expand this conversation, but also for all the time that you've given Scott and his team and the Lexington NASCA team to bring together the state micro reviews. These have been so insightful. As we've all mentioned today, they are on NASCA's Knowledge Center. Please go listen to the on-demand recording, learn more, and I know all of our state teams would be happy to share more information via phone or email. We look forward to having you all with us on Thursday, where we're going to continue conversations with our corporate partners. We're going to be talking with representatives from JLL, from UKG, formerly Kronos, and also iValua. So great conversations around telework and returning to work. Great things coming up on Thursday. So we will see you all then. Thanks again for being with us. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everybody.